Hello everyone, welcome to Mayo Core. My name is Mayana. I read a little bit of everything. Today I'm going to be talking about the riyria revelation. So this is a 6-book series, but it is binded up into 3 books. So every book is 2 books in one, which is why they look so huge. And I just finished this series, and this year one of my biggest goals is to get better at reading series. I absolutely suck at them. I will read the first book, decide I like the series, and then move on to something completely different. And so this year I'm like, no, I need to work on finishing series. So every time I accomplish that and I finish a series, I'm going to be talking about it as like a reward. So my plan is to upload videos on like Fridays every time I finish a series. So if I don't upload on a Friday, I didn't finish the series. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about the riyria revelations. I'm not going to be holding up all of these books because these books are heavy. These books are big as hell, actually. So, what is riyria Revelations about? This series follows 2 mercenaries named Hadrian and Royce. They're known as riyria because this is a fantasy book and this is set in the olden times. No one knows what they look like. The first book actually starts off with 2 guys trying to rob them and not succeeding, and then realizing that they're riyria and they're like, oh shit. But basically what happens in this series is that the first book, they were sent to the castle to steal a sword, which is why it's called Step of Swords, but they're actually framed for the king's murder. So someone else murdered the king and then framed them for it, and because they're mercenaries and they were already in the castle, it's heavily believed. And so the princess actually sets them free. The princess is like, I believe someone is out to kill my brother now that the king is dead. Please take him to this safe place. As we're on the way to this destination, we end up finding so much more about this world, how like it slowly introduces magic to you, because when the series first starts off, it's very much just olden times, 2 guys who are mercenaries traveling, and it sounds very boring, but I promise you guys, if it was not entertaining, I would not have finished it. Okay, first of all, this book has one of the best romances I have ever read. And they're funny, and I absolutely love in fantasy books when there is like characters who are very funny, who play off of each other, who have really good humor, and these books absolutely have that. Hadrian and Royce are absolutely hilarious. They're not serious people. Royce is the more serious of the 2. He's a shorter guy. He has his own lore that's going on that you figure out as you get to the series, and like why he is what he is. He always has a hood. He's like the dark and mysterious guy in the corner. Like Adrian, he's like very like, I don't want to say upbeat, but he's the funnier of the 2, and he's like the bigger one, and so he's not serious. He always has a joke. And one of the books, actually, Hadrian wants to retire, and he's like, we should go and be actors. And Royce is like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we are mercenaries. What do you mean we need to go be actors? And he like, we need to get ourselves on the stage. Like, we can go and act. Like, I'm sure we need to find something else to do. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And Royce is like, bro, we are not good at anything else. Like, this is all we have. Like, the banter that they have with each other is so good. The series introduces other characters. It has side characters. It has a little bit of romance. I actually end up accidentally predicting one of the romances that happened, and I kept thinking like, this is not gonna happen. This is not gonna happen. It happened at the very end, and I was so surprised because I forgot that I wanted it to happen. And then when it happened, I was like, wow, like this is great. This is crazy. Like, so it has romance. It's not heavy romance. It's a very slow burn. Also, unfortunately, does have pain. Okay, I definitely, by the end of this book, like the first book is definitely like a 4.5-star read, but as you go on with the series and you get used to these characters and you start to get to know them a little bit more, I feel like it's definitely like more than that. Like, this felt like family. Like, this is found family. Like, yes, you have Hadrian and Royce, and they are the core 2, and you follow them throughout the series, but then you have other characters. You have the princess Arista, you have the prince Alaric, you have Gwen, who ends up having a romance with Royce, which I don't really consider a spoiler because it's kind of obvious, but I don't really think of romances as spoilers. And you have Myron, who is this monk, and he's really smart, and he reads a lot of books. And you have Thrace, who is like another character. You have Thrace. She's another character. You have so many more characters that you end up meeting as the story goes along. And like in some books, like, okay, so like in the first book, you don't really get to know a little bit. You don't know a lot about Arista, and then it's just like the guys and Alaric. And Alaric, oh my gosh, the adventure with Alaric in the first book was so fun because it felt like when And I'm gonna compare it to Game of Thrones a lot. I think this series was written in like 2012, I believe, or like the early 2000, like 2010, 2012, like one of those. Either it was written in that time or it got published in that time. Because what happened was the author was a self-published author, and then Orbit picked it up, and then that's why they're binded up the way that they are. I believe it's probably because of like the whole Lord of the Rings like effect, because you know back in like the early 2000s or whatever, because the Lord of the Rings was a trilogy, every single publisher believed that fantasies needed to be trilogies. That's what I think. I don't know for sure, but anyways, so this was written around the same time of like Game of Thrones was coming out, so I feel like it picks up a lot. But basically, like, the guys are taking the prince, so Royce and Hadrian are set to take Alaric away from like the tower so that whoever killed the prince isn't out to kill him next. And Alaric definitely has like a Jaime Lannister effect of it all, like very like stuck up like prince, but like, oh, I'm like so handsome but I'm a prince. And like, I don't know, he's, the banter with all three of them was really great. I didn't want it to end. And then the second book picks up and you follow like a different character, and then Arista and the guys end up going on their adventure. I think in the third book the books start to come together at a certain point. I'm so sorry because it is written to be a 6-book series. They do unfortunately start to like just combine together, but then you get like Arista in the later books, and then you meet Thrice, sorry, then you meet her, and it's like, then you have like this found family. Like, they all aren't always in like the same books until the end. When I tell you guys, the ending was so satisfying. Was I distraught? Yes. There is betrayal, there's death, there's a happy ending, I would say. Well, somewhat. It wasn't really a happy ending for me, but it was at the same time. You know, it made up for what happened, I feel like. But there's a lot that goes on in this series. Like, it's so fun. It's such an easy read. I know a lot of people don't really like those books because they're not like hard. They're not like, you don't have to think a lot. There's no magic system. Well, there is a magic system, but that's not the focus. Neither of the guys possess magic. They're not using magic. They're using their swords, which can sound boring, but when you're reading so many fantasy books about intricate magic systems and so much lore, it is just something so satisfying reading these two guys just going on an adventure. Like, I read the books as like a TV show. Like, you know how like in a TV show, like it starts off in their home base, and then like they get a problem that they need to solve, and so they need to go back, they need to go, you know, away and like solve that problem, and then in the end they come back to their home base. That's kind of how I read Theft of Swords, and like, it was a really good palate cleanser despite these books being huge. The last book, this doesn't look it, this is 900 pages. It doesn't look like it, but it's 900 pages. She was huge. I didn't even realize it until I got to the end, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Especially because I split them up as I read them. So I read them like I read them in individual books, and then once I finished the set, I marked it as read on Goodreads. So like, I couldn't tell you what the individual series are called. I am so sorry. I really can't, because I don't know. That these series are so amazing. The last book had like this found family of it all, where like everybody came together at the end, and it felt like the ending of Game of Thrones, the last season, which I don't hate the last season of Game of Thrones. I definitely do think that the first half was really good, and then the last like 2-3 episodes were shit from the butt. And so this really encapsulates like the first half. Like, you know how like in Game of Thrones you're meeting all these characters, you have so many different characters, like all the Starks are split up, and so you have all of their lore and like all the characters that they meet, and then like everything that's going on in the end, everyone that survived the game, like everyone who survived to the end, they are in the last episode and they come together, and it just was like, it was the best. It was so great. It's so crazy how shit the last like 3 episodes were, because the first half of the season was like literally everything I could ask for. But this felt exactly like that without the shit. Like, this felt exactly like that. Like, it had such a satisfying ending that I wish Game of Thrones had. You have all these characters that you have been meeting throughout the series that come together in the end, and it's just absolutely amazing. Like, the ending was all that I could ask for. Is very satisfying. The females in the book are written really well. Well, they're written, I think, pretty decent. Like, and I also think that that's like the very Game of Thrones. I think the women in Game of Thrones are written pretty well. Like, I don't think that they're like the best written women ever, but I don't think that it's shit. And you're not gonna get she boobed boobily, okay? You're not gonna get, she had her breastlet, you know, in her corset. You're not going to get that. And you're also not going to get a character being brutally raped for the sake of a plot. You're not going to get that. You're going to get strong female characters doing strong female character shit. And I would sometimes even forget that this book was written by a man when like Arista was being written. And even Gwen is one of my favorite characters. Is it because she's black? Yes. Do we get black characters in just a fantasy, like a black, like said, you know, like not, oh, this is adapted to be a TV show and we're gonna make the character in black. No, we get black characters in fantasy stories. Yes, we do. And she is a love interest, and she's a prostitute, which I didn't necessarily love, but I mean, freaking Royce is like, they're thieves, they're mercenaries. Like, these people are not gonna have like the ideal castle lives, you know. I don't know, I personally love it. I loved Gwen, I loved Arissa, I love Royce, but Royce and Hadrian are the meat of this story. It's why I kept coming back. Like, sometimes I would be like, I want to take a break from this series. I'm not good at reading series. The moment I can try to take a break from the series, I will try to do that. And I was like, I want to take a break from this series. Like, I reached this point, like I feel proud of myself, like I read this many books. But then I'll be like, Hadrian and Royce, those are my, like, they kept me coming back. Like, they were so funny, and it was just so relaxing to read about these characters in whatever situations they could get themselves in while reading these big fantasy books. And like, yes, this is also a big fantasy book, but it didn't feel like it. These read really fast, to be honest, despite them being fucking humongous. And I think that I've said all I need to say for this video. I think I've yapped all I can yap. I will be reading the Riyria Chronicles. I actually started last night. The Riyria Chronicles takes place how Hadrian and Royce met. This whole universe is an expansive universe. This isn't just the Riyria Revelations. It's not just these 6 books. There are 5 books in the Riyria Chronicles, which is like how they met and like before this one. Then there are 6 books, forget what the series is called, but there are 6 books after that. And then there are 3 books after that. So this is like a huge series. It's like a Realm of the Elderlings type of series. I'm starting to realize that I love series like that are just like huge and expansive. Everything after this is before, and you can read them in any order you want to read. If you want a video on the reading order, let me know, but you can read them however you want to read them. I'm currently reading the Riyria Chronicles, and in the author's note, the author said that he purposely wrote it to where you can start it wherever. So if you're a chronological girly, then reading in chronological. If you are a publication date or girly, then reading in publication order. It really doesn't matter. People are going to tell you, oh, I think you should start here, I think you should start here. I think you should start, if you like chronological order, then read it in that order. If you like publication order, then read it in that order. If you don't know where you should start, read it in publication order. If you want a video on like the reading order, once I get done with them, I can definitely let you know. This is my family, and this is one of my favorite series of all time, which is so crazy because like I knew I was gonna love it, but like I just didn't know to what extent. And listen to me, okay? I know what I'm talking about. Pick the books up. But yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.